Sound check 1 2. We are live on YouTube. Make sure we're not flushed out with the light there. Facebook is on. Sound on. We are on LinkedIn. Good morning. Facebook. Good morning. X Rumble. Good morning. YouTube. Are we live? Make sure everything's where it's supposed to be on YouTube. Yes. We are good on YouTube. Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning. We know what the topic is here today. We are talking about fact checking, quote unquote, fact checking. We got to put that in quotation marks because people have different interpretations of what this term actually means. We're going to get into it here today. I'm going to make sure everybody understands what it actually means, what's actually changing, why it's changing, and where are we going to go from here? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this going to help us? Is this going to hurt us? And when I say us, I mean us as people in general who get on the internet to get information, share information, talk about what we want to talk about, share our opinions, perspectives, experiences, et cetera, et cetera. That's the topic here today when we come to this concept of fact checking. Before we get started, let me introduce myself because I don't even need to get too much of a background on this one. We're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job over here is performance and results. That's what we do. We help people perform at their highest level and produce results, taking the tools that I developed and learned from my background as a professional athlete and applying those things to the business world in a way that anybody can understand and anybody can apply. That's what we do here at Work on Your Game University. If you want to learn more about that, go to the links in my bio, and it is simply workonyourgameuniversity.com. Before we get into all the material, let me let you all know a couple housekeeping things. Number one, I'm live on 7 different platforms right now: TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. So make sure you follow me on multiple platforms. If you're following me on TikTok, for example, which tends to be my biggest live stream audience, make sure you click the links in my profile and follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because all the replays from all these live streams that I do are always on YouTube. So you can always find the replays over on YouTube. Second thing is, if you are not getting my emails, I sent the email out this morning. If you're not on my email list, it is free to get on the email list. Just go to workonmygame.com. That's workonmygame.com. You can get on my email list completely for free. And when I send my emails out, I send emails out every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And it's called the Daily Game email. You can get that for free by just going to workonmygame.com. Everybody got all of that. So this topic here today is fact checking. And the reason that we're talking about this is because if you follow what happens on social media, that's where I get all my news from. So yesterday on social media, Mark Zuckerberg, all of y'all know him. He is the Facebook guy, the guy who helped start Facebook, or started Facebook and still runs the company, now known as Meta. He put a video out that was about 2 minutes long, or maybe it was longer than that, maybe 5 minutes. And what Zuckerberg announced was that Facebook was no longer going to employ what they called fact checkers. So basically, somebody was to post something on Facebook, let's say last year, and they would have a team. What they would have is a team of people who would look at whatever you posted, often on social issues, political issues. And these people's job was to decide, hey, or not to decide, but to add, hey, here's a fact check on what this person says. So let's say this person says something about the Democrats or the Republicans or about Trump or whatever. This fact checker or these fact checkers would check and make sure that what this person shared was actually accurate, actually factual, whatever. And what Mark Zuckerberg announced is that Facebook is no longer, and Instagram, they're no longer going to employ these fact checkers. And instead, they're going to go to a community notes system similar to what X is doing, X formerly known as Twitter, with Elon Musk. So what community notes is, for those of you who don't use X, community notes is like, let's say you post something online about politics or some hot button issue, or it could be any topic. It doesn't have to be politics, but it's sourced from politics because this is the area where people would argue about what's true and what's not true, like the whole fake news and facts and all that stuff. Started in politics, but this can apply to anything. You can make a post about basketball and there could be a fact check. So community notes is what X uses, which means if I post something, let's just say me, I post something, all of you who are watching me right now, you can help add context to what I say. So what if I share something, I only share 50% of the information? Maybe it's true, everything that I share, but I left out half the information. That can very well mislead people. So what happens is the community, the group, can now add context to what I said, and those are called community notes. That's how it works on X. So if somebody puts out something on X and they're kind of misleading you by only giving you half the information, everybody else can come in and add context to what they said, so that now it makes a little bit more sense what's being said, so the person can't mislead you with the nonsense. And Mark Zuckerberg is saying that Facebook is going to do a similar thing as what X is already doing, have community notes instead of quote unquote fact checking. All right, so that's why this became a news story, because he just put this video out yesterday announcing this. Good morning, everybody over there on TikTok. And by the way, those of you who are new around here, haven't heard me go live before, I do take questions and comments. I'll do that at the end after I get through all the material. So let's start here. Well, we already started, but let's start why fact checking is even a thing. So I already told you why fact checking is a thing, because when Donald Trump got into politics, this is when it really became a thing, because Donald Trump would come out and he would say things that directionally might be true, but they may not be 100% factually accurate. And this is just the way that he talks. I said this over and over again with Donald Trump, and people would get mad because of the way that he communicates. He's a salesperson. He would speak in these grandiose terms, and people would say, well, what he said is factually not true, but it will be directionally true. So then this whole thing of, well, we got to check the facts on everything Donald Trump says. Every time Donald Trump speaks, we got to check the facts. And then you have people who don't like him who say, well, every time Donald Trump talks, he's lying. And this became a whole thing. And when Donald Trump was running in 2016, people said, well, there's no way he's going to win because he's always lying and he's not telling the truth, et cetera, et cetera. Then, of course, he won in 2016. And what happened is the mainstream media and all Donald Trump's political opponents, of which he has many, they decided that they needed a scapegoat for the outcome that they didn't want to happen, because many people thought there was no way he could win. So when he won, instead of those people saying, you know what, maybe we are the problem. Because remember in 2016, when Donald Trump came out, he started trashing the mainstream media. He trashed CNN. He trashed the New York Times. He trashed MSNBC. And he started calling them fake news, which that term still applies, or it still has stuck to this very day. And it's been a stain on the mainstream media, because what it did was it caused a lot of people to, first of all, just question whatever the mainstream media was telling us. Whereas before that, we didn't usually question what the mainstream media said. We might disagree, but we didn't question every single word that they said. So when Trump started calling them fake news, we started questioning every single thing that they said, and it undermined their credibility. It undermined our trust in the mainstream media, and they realized that that was happening. But instead of, because at that point they had two choices. They could have said, you know what, we have lost the trust of the everyday people. And even though Donald Trump is the catalyst for us losing the trust of the everyday person, we can't blame Donald Trump. All he did was point it out. So what we need to do, again, this could be the mainstream media talking hypothetically. They could have said, you know what we need to do? We need to look at ourselves in the mirror, and we need to check ourselves, and we need to do a better job of giving people material that they can trust, so that we have the trust of the people. Because if we don't have the trust of the people, then we don't exist. They could have did that. They didn't do it. What they do instead? Instead, they decided that they needed to come up with a scapegoat and blame someone other than the person in the mirror, or the entity in the mirror, for the outcome of 2016 of Trump winning. Their solution was, okay, instead of them doing what they should have did, which is say, let's take ownership of our own failure. Instead, they said, let's blame someone else. And their blame was, well, the reason people didn't trust us is because we aren't checking the facts enough. So here's what we're going to do. Every time somebody puts something out, we're going to figure out what the fact is, and we're going to fact check everything that comes out, so that we can be the arbiter of what is accurate and what is not. That's what the mainstream media decided to do instead of what they should have done. Again, I said that 3 times already. What they should have done was say, we've lost people's trust. and we need to work to get it back. Instead of doing that, which would have took effort and work and basically holding themselves accountable, they said, well, let's hold somebody else accountable. Let's blame somebody else for this. Donald Trump is one of the blame, so we got to fact check everything he says, and anyone who supports or is okay with Donald Trump, half the country, now we got to fact check them too. That's what they decided that the problem was. And they started basically pressuring, and this was on the Democratic side governmentally, and it was also with the mainstream media. They started pressuring social media to start, quote unquote, fact checking everything that was being said to make sure that anything that got said that made them look bad, whether that be the Democratic side or the mainstream media, had to be, quote unquote, fact checked, and basically suppressing the messages that were coming out. Now, just this past year, when the 2024 election was set to almost happen, the Washington Post, which is now owned by Jeff Bezos, he's the guy who created Amazon, he owns the newspaper, and he told his editorial staff that, no, we are not going to put out an endorsement for a certain candidate this year, because that's, I guess, is a tradition amongst newspapers to put out an endorsement. There's a lot of people on the left side, because it seemed like the editorial board was going to support Kamala Harris. I'm assuming that's what they were going to do. They were all up in arms that day when that didn't happen, when the endorsement article didn't come out, because Jeff Bezos is the owner, and he said, we're not putting it out, even though they had already written it. A bunch of people who worked at the Washington Post were angry and saying, well, we should be able to put it out. We should be able to endorse, et cetera, et cetera. Jeff Bezos put a letter out, and he put it out publicly, a letter that he sent to his editors. He said, listen, and this, I'm paraphrasing, you can go find it online and read the whole thing. One of the things that Jeff Bezos said was that, according to polls, because what they do is they have, y'all know about the polls, especially in politics, but there are polls about other things. The question was asked in this poll, who do you trust least in the United States? What entities do you have the least amount of trust for? And generally, the answer has always been Congress. The entity that comes in last place that Americans have the least amount of trust for has always been Congress. Those are your House of Representatives and Senators. Those are the people who make the bills that become laws in America. They have the lowest trust rating in all of America. And second to last would be the mainstream media. They were second to last traditionally. That always been the case. And what Jeff Bezos showed them, his editors, was that now it is flipped. Now we're in last place. And we used to be in second to last place to Congress. Now we have surpassed, in a negative way, Congress, that people trust us less than they trust Congress, the mainstream media. People simply do not trust the mainstream media. And Jeff Bezos said, reality is undefeated. Right? We can't keep acting like we need to just double down and triple down and quadruple down on doing what we've always done, because clearly it is not working. It is going in the wrong direction. He's 100% correct. And what he explained to them is that we need to, first of all, if you're going to be a media outlet, you're going to offer news. Number one, you need to tell people what is accurate, and you need to tell people the truth. And number two, they have to believe that you're telling them the truth. So even if you think you're telling people the truth, but they don't believe you're telling them the truth, it doesn't really matter if you're telling the truth. Everybody understand that? And this is what Jeff Bezos was explaining to his people. And a lot of them didn't really want to hear it, because many of them have a strong amount of Trump derangement syndrome. And many of them, they want to be the makers of the news rather than the reporters of the news. And rather than telling people and parsing what is accurate based on objectivity, instead, they want to be part of the mix, which is why they were so mad, because they couldn't come out and endorse Kamala. Why does it matter if you want to endorse Kamala or not? Are you a journalist? Are you a reporter? Or are you some person you just want your voice to be heard? And if so, you should quit working at a newspaper and go start a Substack or something, start a YouTube channel or a podcast. But anyway, all of this fact checking thing was a result of Donald Trump winning in 2016, and people needed a scapegoat. Their scapegoat was, well, obviously people aren't listening to us strongly enough, so we're going to come out with another tool that makes them listen to us, which is this quote unquote concept of fact checking. Now, here's what I want people to understand about this whole concept of fact checking allegedly coming to an end, because that's what everybody's been talking about online over the last day or two, that fact checking is going to end. First of all, we have the First Amendment. Because I saw Jamel Hill, who is a journalist, and I use the term loosely and generously when calling her that she's more of an influencer, but she wrote a post that I responded to on X the other day and was saying that it's dangerous to not have fact checking, which is some bullshit language that a lot of women use and feminized men use. It's not dangerous to not have fact checking, because first of all, we have the First Amendment. First Amendment of the United States gives us the right to free speech, which means people can say what they want to say. There are some parameters of things that you can't say. Of course, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't make terroristic threats against other people. You can't tell someone you're going to physically hurt them. But generally, free speech means you have the right to say what you want to say, even if you are wrong, even if you are inaccurate, even if everybody in the world disagrees with what you said, you still have the right to say what you want to say. That's what that's not fact checking, excuse me. That's what the First Amendment is. And in America, you have that. In other countries in the world, those of you who are from other countries or in other countries, you understand you don't have these kind of rights in other countries. But in the United States of America, you have the right to say whatever you want, even if you are wrong, even if you are inaccurate, even if what you said has been proven to be inaccurate, you can still say it. And even if everybody hates it, you can still say it. And that moves us to our next point. Facts and truth are not the same thing. Facts and truth are not the same thing. Many people tend to believe that they are the same. They are not the same. One way that you know that facts and truth are not the same is because there are two different words. If facts and truth were the same thing, why do we need two different words to describe them? Because they're not the same. A fact, ladies and gentlemen, is something that is accurate and it can be proven and is backed up by something that can be proven. The truth, on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, is all of the facts in full context. Do you understand the difference? A fact is something that can be pulled out. You can pull a fact out of the truth and present just the fact by itself. The truth, however, you cannot pull the truth out of context. You can pull a fact out of context. You cannot pull the truth out of context. Let me give you an example. Right now in South Florida, in Miami, right now it is 50 degrees. Now, any of you who lives in South Florida, lives in Miami, or has ever been here, and I'm looking at the weather forecast, this is crazy. It says next Friday is going to be 38 degrees as the low, which is crazy. It never gets that cold here. But the whole point being, it is a fact that it's 50 degrees right now. Now, if you didn't know anything else, and I just presented you that fact, and you didn't know anything else about Miami, you might think, okay, well, Miami, it gets kind of a little bit cool in the wintertime. It's January. But the truth is, what's the truth? The truth is, usually it doesn't get that cold here. And if it does, we get maybe a week or two of this type of weather. And then for the rest of the year, the temperature is usually in the 70s and up all year round, January through December. That's the truth. You see, if I just presented you the fact, pulled out of context without any other material, you might be led to believe, because I just told you, next Friday, according to the weather, is going to be 38 degrees in the morning. If I just showed you that, you might think, okay, well, Miami's weather is no different than New York or Washington, D.C. But when we put everything in full context, and I tell you the whole story of how it usually is here, it changes your view of the situation. Does everybody understand it? And this is why fact checking is some nonsense, because fact checking allows whoever the decider is of what fact is going to be checked, they can choose which facts to check and which ones not to check. And they can say, okay, so any of you who followed the presidential debates and the vice presidential debates, even in the last election cycle, you saw this happen. Donald Trump would say something and Kamala would say something. And the moderators who were supposed to be either fact checking evenly or not fact checking at all, they would fact check something that Donald Trump said. And then when Kamala would say something, they wouldn't fact check it, even though they both said something that was not inaccurate. That was not accurate. Excuse me. So Donald Trump said something that wasn't accurate. They would fact check it. Or he would say something that was he pulled a fact out of context is what he would do. And Kamala does the same thing. All politicians do this, by the way, on all sides politically. So Donald Trump will pull a fact out of context, and then the moderators would fact check him and say, well, the whole thing is this. And then Kamala will pull a fact out of context, and they wouldn't say anything. And Donald Trump pointed this out he would point it out on social media afterwards. They did the same thing with J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz in the vice presidential debate, is that the moderators were choosing which facts to check and which facts not to check. This is nonsense. And this is why fact checking should go away, because the biggest problem with fact checking is that when you anoint an entity, whether that's a person or an organization, to decide which facts to check and which not to check, they have the power of what to point out and what not to point out. That's why community notes is better, because community notes, instead of putting the power in the hands of, let's say, these two moderators or this one organization or these 10 people who we hired as fact checkers, see, they have all the power. Instead of giving the power just to them, now we're going to get a power to the entire community. That's what community notes is. Community notes is, if I say something that's half true, all of you can check me on it. All of you have the power to say something. Now, see, if I said something that's half true and you got 3 fact checkers over here, and let's say they like me, they'll just let it go and not say anything, even though what I said is only half true. But if what I say now can be held accountable by the entirety of the platform, now it's going to be much harder for me to put some nonsense out there that y'all can't see through. Everybody understand this? And this is why it's better this way. And the only people who are mad about this, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. I'll touch on it now, but I'm gonna go deeper into this later. The only people who are mad about the fact checking going away are people who have some type of platform where they can consider themselves to be the arbiter of what's factually true and what's factually not true. See, people who know, and also people who can put stuff out and not be checked on their bullshit. See, people who are putting stuff out and you know that your stuff it can be defended and you can stand on it, you don't mind. I'll put my stuff out for the whole world, and any of you can challenge me on anything that I say. I say this when I do these lives every single day. And I do lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, by the way. When I do these lives, I tell you all the time, especially when I get the comments, you're going to see this. If you disagree with something that I say, you are free to disagree. And I will engage with your disagreement as long as there's some substance in your disagreement. I don't have a problem with somebody disagreeing with me, because you have a right to, because I have some of these things that I'm saying are opinions. Some of them are theories, and some of them are just accurate black and white facts. But I don't have a problem with someone disagreeing with me, because I'm willing to stand on my position. People who are unwilling to defend their positions, unless they're only defending it with people who are friendly to them, those are the people who are mad about fact checking, because they want to be able to say what they want to say without anybody challenging them. I don't mind somebody challenging me, because I'm willing to defend anything that I say. I'm willing to defend it and stand on it and explain it contiguously so you understand exactly where I'm coming from. And I'm going to get to who those people are in a moment. But let me continue where I was at. Truth, ladies and gentlemen, requires the full context. Because, see, there's no such thing as fact checking the truth. There is no such thing as fact checking the truth. The truth is all of the facts of a situation in complete and full context. You cannot pull the truth out of context. It's impossible. The truth means everything that you need to know so that you understand the entire story. The problem with the truth, there are a few problems with the truth, is number one, is that people have to have the attention span to consume and absorb the truth. Because the truth, usually you can't get it in a soundbite. So you can't get the truth in a 30-second clip. You can't get the truth in a 30-second clip. You got to go through the whole thing. You got to listen to the whole 2 hours or read the whole book to get the truth. Most people don't have they are unwilling to commit the attention span to get the full truth of something. They only want the part that they want to hear, the part that's sensational or interesting or funny or alarming or whatever it happens to be. See, most people just don't want to do that. And the internet has pandered to this. And this is why you get a whole lot of people, again, pulling facts out of context. And then I got some facts over here to make this person look good. You got some facts over here to make that person look bad. And we both have facts. And we're battling on the facts. I'm giving you my facts. You're giving me your facts. We're both 100% accurate in what we're saying. Neither one of us is talking about the truth. And this is how we get this division in views, how people can be looking at what we call it is two movies on the same screen. So we're both watching the same movie, but I got my 10 facts over here that I saw. You got your 10 facts over here. We are both 100% accurate in our facts, but we're just choosing different facts. And this is how we get the division. This is how people get to not agreeing with each other, because we have all these different facts that we're arguing about because neither side is talking about the truth. And this is why fact checking is nonsense. This is why fact checking is useless. Because if I'm a Republican, all I'm going to do is pull out the facts that make the Democrats look bad. And I'm going to point out, all right, these are all the facts that make the Democrats look bad. And if you're a Democrat, you're going to pull out the facts that make the Republicans look bad. And all we're doing is just going back and forth in circles. And neither one of us is getting anywhere. And all we're doing is I'm getting all the Republican voters to like me and watch my TV show. You're getting all the Democrat voters to like you and watch your TV show. And then everybody's mad at each other because the Republicans are like, well, Dre has all the facts. And the Democrats are like, well, this person has all the facts. And neither one of us is wrong. Neither one of us is lying. So any of you want to understand why there's so much quote unquote division in our country right now when people are arguing about these things politically, this is why. It's not because either side is factually inaccurate. It's because neither side is focused on the truth. We're all just focused on facts. And when you understand the distinction between facts and the truth, now you understand why there's this confusion going on amongst people. Uneven standards. Now, moving on to my next point. There are uneven standards about what a fact is versus what a fact is not. And again, this is what happens. Uneven standards happen when you put power in the hands of a few rather than putting power in the hands of the whole. And there's, again, I'm going to get to the people who don't want this to happen. Let me back up. When you put power in the hands of a few, such as, and this is on a micro level and a macro level. On a micro level, it could be something like when Trump and Kamala were debating, the power was in the hands of those two moderators sitting at the desk. Why? Because they're the ones who get to decide. If Trump says something and then Kamala says something, they get to decide, okay, we're going to point out that this was not, we're going to fact check what Trump just said. And we're not going to fact check what Kamala just said, even though there are millions of us watching on TV who might want to fact check what Kamala said and might want to fact check what Trump said. Why don't they just leave it to the community? The reason they don't want to leave it to the community is because the mainstream media understands that they have to keep control of the flow of information. Why? Because that makes them relevant. If they lose control of the flow of information, then why do we need them anymore? Well, the answer is we don't. This is why Trump has won 2 elections, depending on who you ask. Maybe he's won 3. And why the mainstream media has lost the trust of the everyday citizen, and why their relevance has continued to diminish, and they're losing viewers, they're losing money because people no longer trust them because we don't need them anymore. So again, this is why they made a mistake back in 2016. They decided to triple down on you, the everyday citizen. You need us. So we're going to introduce this concept of fact checking. The problem is it has backfired on them. And now people are getting their quote unquote facts. And what they really should be getting is the truth from the whole of the community. This is what social media did. What social media as a whole did was take the power out of the hands of a few, and they put it in they put the power in the hands of everybody. And again, this is not just when it comes to politics. So think about this. You can see these books behind me on the shelf. It used to be 15 years ago, or let's say 20 years ago, if you wanted to write a book, you had to go through a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper is basically a person who decides who gets in and who doesn't get in, like a bouncer at a club is a gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper would decide, okay, we want Dre to write a book. They signed me to a publishing deal. I had to go through them. And the only way I can get my book in a bookstore or on Amazon is I had to go through this gatekeeper who gets to decide whether I am qualified or not to write a book. When self-publishing became a thing, the gates got torn down. They tore the gates down. So now anybody can write a book. Any one of you who's listening to this right now, you can have a book on Amazon within the next week if you wanted to. Why? Because the power got taken out of the hands of a few, the publishers who get to decide who gets to write a book and who doesn't. Now anybody can write a book. Now they are not as relevant as they used to be. Same thing when it comes to radio. If you want to have a radio show, you had to connect with someone who had power at a radio company. They decided, okay, Dre, you can have a radio show. Now we have podcasting. Anybody can start a podcast. So the power is not in the hands of the few decision makers who get to say who gets to have a podcast and who doesn't. Same thing when it comes to TV. TV was balanced out by YouTube. Now anybody can have a quote unquote TV show. All you got to do is turn on your phone and start a YouTube channel. So what social media and the internet period, I guess you can call this web 2.0, what it did was take the power out of the hands of a few people who get to decide who is okay, who's not okay, who's approved of, who's not approved of. Now everybody can approve of themselves, even though the funny thing is, even though this is the reality, a lot of people, some of you who are listening to this right here, a lot of people still behave as if you need somebody else's approval. Now, I happen to be an entrepreneur, not only in fact, but also an entrepreneur at heart. And I understand this, and I don't wait for anybody's approval to do anything that I want to do. And I encourage other people to think this exact same way, because in the world that we're in now, 2025, you don't need anybody's approval to do what you want to do. You don't need anyone's approval to start a radio show, a TV show, write a book, or anything else you want to do. You can pretty much do anything that you want to do. You can start making money right now with no money down on the internet. Again, 25, 30 years ago, your parents couldn't do that, to just start a business from nowhere, from their couch. So I'm going to a bigger picture here, but I'm going to get back to my points, is that this whole concept of fact checking is pushed by people who have been raised on and they continue to live off of, because their careers are based on it. We need to be the people who have all the power over what is accepted versus what is not accepted. And they are fighting against reality. Again, Jeff Bezos said this: reality is undefeated. They're fighting against this reality that is staring all of us in the face. It's not even staring us in the face. It's knocking on the door right now that, hey, we can't concentrate power in the hands of a few anymore. Everybody can do what they want to do. They can say what they want to say, and people can truth check and community note each other. All right. That's the reality of the situation. All Mark Zuckerberg is doing, because Mark Zuckerberg, just like Jeff Bezos, just like Elon Musk, is a pretty smart guy. Right? Whether you like what he's doing or not, whether you're a fan of Facebook or not, we can't deny that the guy's pretty damn smart. Now, he started Facebook. Facebook is a $1 billion company. They make a whole lot of money. Almost all of us have a Facebook or Instagram profile. We can't say that the guy's not smart. You can't do that. And just like Jeff Bezos, all right, these guys are smart because they look at the world in a way that many people neglect to look at the world. And Jeff Bezos, just like Mark Zuckerberg, or Mark Zuckerberg, just like Jeff Bezos, is looking at the writing on the wall. All right, it's obvious that people do not want and we do not trust when a handful of people get to make all the decisions anymore. We see this with the mainstream media. Who watches the mainstream media anymore? Very few people. Why? Because we don't trust them anymore. We want to go on the internet and see what the whole of people have to say. Doesn't mean everything you hear you're going to agree with. But if 80,000 people get to look at something and decide whether it's credible or not, we trust that more than when there's 8 people who get to decide whether something's credible or not. And that's the key. And this is the reason why I talked about this when I did the live on Elon Musk. This is the reason why a whole bunch of people are not liking Elon Musk, because he is going to expose, because he has access through Donald Trump. He has access to what's happening in the government, and he has a big platform, being X, that he uses the whole, and he's going to expose a whole lot of things that usually happen in the shadows in the government. He's going to make it public and make sure all of us know about it, rather than how it used to be was only a few people knew about it and it was quiet. Now all of us are going to know about it. Now it's going to be a story. That's the part that they don't like. And again, I'm gonna get to those people in a second. So this whole thing is all about policing and censorship of speech. That's what it is. And that's why I mentioned the First Amendment. My first point was about the First Amendment, because in the United States of America, you have the free speech to say what you want to say, even if you're wrong, even if you are factually inaccurate, even if you are hateful, even if you are nasty, even if you are harmful, another word that people use these days. All of these are used as a form of censorship of free speech. People are allowed to say dangerous things, and danger that's a word that we got to be careful with, because it's a relative term, and people tend to use that when they're trying to censor someone else talking. People say, well, it's dangerous to say. I remember I was speaking at Toastmasters about 10 years ago. I was the president of Toastmasters in South Beach for about a year and a half, about 10 years ago. And I remember I was up there talking about being an expert. How do you become an expert? And I said, the number one thing you got to do to be an expert is to call yourself an expert. And I wasn't joking. It was tongue in cheek, but it was also, I was being serious. And that's still true to this day. Number one thing you do to make yourself an expert is to declare yourself an expert. There's no organization that says, okay, now Dre, you're an expert now. No, you're an expert as soon as you declare yourself an expert. And there was this guy in the audience. He raised his hand and said, well, it's dangerous for somebody to just be able to call themselves an expert. And let me tell you who this guy was and why it's funny. This guy was a lawyer. Now, why is that funny? The reason it's funny is because lawyers go through, maybe some lawyers listen to me right now. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on social media. Lawyers have to go through years of schooling, and they had to be certified, and they had to be approved of by the board in the state in which they practice in order to call themselves a lawyer. In other words, they had to be approved of by somebody else. They had to go through a gate in order to be a lawyer. So in order for them to get the title that they have, they had to be approved of by people who hold power. But when I came in the room as an entrepreneur and said, you're an expert as soon as you call yourself one, well, of course, that offended him, because it basically took all the stuff that he had to do and all these hurdles he had to jump over, all these ladders he had to climb to become a lawyer. And I just said, well, none of that matters. Well, this guy's 50, 60 years old. His whole life is dedicated to climbing ladders. I said, you don't need to climb a ladder. Of course, he's going to be offended by it. Everybody understand that? And this is the issue. There are people who have spent their lives climbing ladders, and they have built their careers, and they built their self-worth and their personal value when they look in the mirror, all on the fact that they have climbed ladders and they've been approved of. That's how they got to the positions that they're in. So when someone like myself or Elon or Mark Zuckerberg comes along and says, you know what, we're going to basically discontinue that process. Nobody else has a climb a ladder. Everybody can say what they want to say, just starting at ground zero. Well, they're looking at that like, shit, I put my whole life into this. Now you're basically taking that and making it irrelevant. In a way, you're making it somewhat irrelevant. Of course, they're going to be upset. This is why they're pushing back. This is why the mainstream media pushes back. Like, everybody can't work at the mainstream media. Anybody can get on YouTube. You understand? Not everybody can work at ABC or Fox or the Washington Post, but anybody can get on X and write a post and go viral tomorrow. And that's the part that they don't like. What they don't like is that what they've invested their lives in, we call this the sunk cost. The sunk cost that they put into making themselves who they are, and it mattering as much as it did, because not everybody could do it. Now, what social media has done and what Bezos is offering And what Mark Zuckerberg is offering and what Elon is offering and all these social media platforms is offering is that we're going to take all that work that everybody else did 20, 30 years ago to get to a position that not everybody could have. And we're going to make that open to where anybody can get that position. So I understand how some people can be annoyed by that and even angered by that, because they are leveling the playing field to make it open for everyone. They've lowered the gates to where there are no gates. So yeah, I can see how somebody can be pissed off. I can see how a lawyer can be pissed off when I get up in the front of the room and say, well, anybody can be an expert as soon as they call themselves one. Whereas you had to put 10 years into becoming a lawyer. I just rendered your 10 years irrelevant. I get why he was annoyed. At the same time, I don't care, but I understand. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the whole issue. And this censorship of speech, I'm not a fan of. First Amendment is the reason why it's the first one. That we cannot police and censorship speech. Calling something dangerous just because you don't like it is nonsense. And I see a lot of people doing this. It is not dangerous language. Unless you are doing something that is legally you can be held accountable for, is not dangerous. That's not dangerous. Calling something harmful, again, not dangerous. There was an email that I sent out this morning, by the way, and the title of the email is I'm not in the feelings business. I'm not in the feelings business. And the reason why I sent this email out is because here's what happened. I wrote an email about 3-4 days ago that I sent out, and I explained how I had gotten banned on TikTok. I was writing a story that happened several months ago. So several months ago, I was doing a live on all these platforms. I'm on 7 different platforms right now. And one of them was on TikTok. I was talking about the educational system. And I was explaining to people that the way the educational system is set up is that when I was in school, and it's still like this to this day, they've amended it somewhat, but the system is still the system, that if a student didn't learn in the traditional standard way, then they would get left behind or they would get put into like special education type of classes. And back in the day, we used to use a word that starts with the letter R. There was a common word back in the day, not as common anymore. People use a word that starts with the letter R as a pejorative to kind of make fun of a kid who wasn't passing classes in school. You know what word I'm talking about? That R word. I'm not saying it because TikTok, I used the word a couple times in my life. And when I used it, TikTok kicked me off and said, yo, you have violated our community guidelines by using certain words you're not supposed to use. So when I did that, I got kicked off for a couple of days, and I wrote an article explaining to people that when you're on someone else's platform, such as TikTok, there are certain rules that they have that you may not have, but they have. And if you're going to be in their space, you got to follow their rules. That was what the article was about. So when I put that article out, I put the word in the article and explained what I had said. And I explained to the audience who was reading my article, I realized why they kicked me off, because I said that word. I was just explaining that to them to make a bigger picture conversation about, hey, if you want to be able to say what you want to say, you got to have your own platform. You can't just be on other people's platforms because they set rules. And if you don't follow them, then you have no platform. Even though I use social media, I'm still an entrepreneur. I have my own platforms. So if all of these go away, I still have a way to reach my audience. That was the bigger picture of my article, right? So I put this article out. Someone replied to my article and they said, well, this is what they said. They said, we don't use that word anymore because it's hurtful and harmful to other people who may be offended by it. So I wrote back to them individually, but then I wrote an article that I put out today. And the thing that I said in that article was that I really don't give a damn if something that I say offends you or you consider it harmful or dangerous, because you ain't the fucking decision maker. I am. And this is what I was explaining to that person is in the article that I sent out today. And I said in that article, fuck your feelings. I'm not in the feelings business. I'm in the performance and results business. If your feelings are hurt, then you're in the wrong place. You're talking to the wrong person. And I 100% meant that. And I'm saying it to all of you right here as well. So I think if you've been listening to the whole time I'm talking here today, I think you got a pretty good feel of my approach. So this whole concept of censoring speech just because you consider it harmful or hurtful or it hurts your feelings or you think somebody else might be offended by what I say, what the fuck? A business of that is mine. That ain't my business. That ain't my problem. Any of you who saw the movie Friday, I remember the movie Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker? And in that movie, do you remember when Big Worm pulls up in the ice cream truck, right? And he calls Smokey over to the ice cream truck and says, yo, you got my money, because Smokey was a marijuana salesperson. And he had some marijuana on consignment from Big Worm. He had to give Big Worm his money back. And Smokey said, well, hey, I ain't got the money yet. and Big Worm is trying to figure out from him in a not so nice way why Smokey doesn't have his money. And Smokey says, well, you know what happened? Craig, Ice Cube, got fired from his job yesterday. And what did Big Worm say when Smokey said Craig got fired from his job yesterday? Same thing that I'm saying to anybody who's telling me that somebody might be offended by something that I say. Big Worm said, what the fuck that got to do with me? And that's the same thing that I say to anybody who tells me that, Dre, well, you used a certain word and either I'm offended or somebody else might be offended. What the fuck that got to do with me? That ain't my business. You being offended is not my business. I'm not in the protecting your feelings business. I am not in the you might be hurt or harmed by something that I say business. I'm not in that business. I'm in the performance and results business. And I want to remind you all or inform you if you don't know. I come from the sports world. And in the sports world, we talk to each other in a very direct ways. You get coached very directly. Your teammates talk to you directly. Your opponents talk to you directly. And if your feelings get hurt by the way somebody is talking to you, you're in the wrong fucking game. All right, this ain't the game to be in. And even though I'm not an athlete anymore, so TikTok just put a notification on me that said your live is restricted from some audiences. Your live contains themes that may be uncomfortable and has been restricted. Reason: regulated goods content. I don't even know what that means. Regulated goods content. I don't know what they're talking about. So, all right. So TikTok just restricted me for some reason. Maybe I cursed too many times. So I won't curse. I'm going to keep cursing so many times, but I don't know what they're talking about. Whatever I said. But anyway, the world that I come from, you get talked to very directly. And if your feelings get hurt by that, you're in the wrong space. And even though I'm not an athlete anymore, the things that my approach to business, my approach to mindset, my approach is still drawn from that world. That's what I want people to understand. So let me move on and pivot to my next point before I go too far in the direction of something that TikTok might not like. So TikTok, I'm moving on to something else. TikTok, don't get mad at me. So community notes, all right, is replacing facts that can be taken out of context because, again, community notes allows context. Why? Because if all of us get to add context to something somebody says, as opposed to one person choosing, one person can be heavily biased in one direction or another. And all of us can be biased as well. Like, let's be clear. Let's say you have one person who's fact checking and they're heavily biased in one direction, right? So they're going to decide which facts to check and how to check it, et cetera, if it's one person. But if it's 100 of us, maybe all 100 of us are also biased, but we're probably not all going to be biased in the same direction. So it's better to crowdsource the knowledge from everybody rather than only relying on one person for the knowledge. Would you agree? I generally think that's a good idea. And I think all of you can agree. We can look at your actions. Right? All of us use social media. Why? Because on social media, we can get access to a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different approaches from a lot of different people. We can crowdsource knowledge, entertainment, information, perspectives, etc., as opposed to having to depend on just one person. Because what something happens to that one person, or what if you don't like that one person, or what if that one person decides they don't want to talk today? Well, now you have access to nothing. But if there are a million people out there, even if let's just say me, right? Let's say I didn't do a live stream today. Let's say I decided I'm not going to go live today. Let's say my internet wasn't working or my computer broke and I didn't do a live stream at all today. Would any of you not use social media at all today just because I didn't go live? Answer is hell no. You would still use social media. You would just watch somebody else. Now, that's the thing about the internet and crowdsourcing knowledge. Not just knowledge, but information, content, etc., is that you're not dependent on just one source. You can go to a whole bunch of other sources. If I decided to never post on social media ever again, none of you would quit using social media just because I'm not there. And you can swipe my name out for anybody else. That's the great thing about a community notes approach, is that we are crowdsourcing the facts and the truth rather than depending on any one source, which could be heavily biased. So fact checkers, as we already talked about, they can and do choose which facts to check. So now let's talk about these people that I told you I was going to get to. The people who are upset about fact checking going away, and not because they are themselves fact checkers, but because they're people who usually work in a space or they have occupied a space where they get to be the arbiters of what should be accepted versus what is not accepted. And that's why they're upset, because now we're pulling the rug out from under them, and whatever they feel like they've accomplished or what has made them somebody now no longer matters because the ladder has been removed. So they climbed up to the top of the building with the ladder, but now Elon and Mark Zuckerberg just installed an elevator. So now the fact that you climbed up the ladder doesn't matter, because now people are going up the elevator and you're sitting there like, man, I did all this work for 20 years to climb up the ladder, and now mofos are coming over here and getting on the elevator as if the ladder doesn't even matter. And the fact is, the ladder does not matter anymore. So I understand why people could be annoyed by that. I'll give you an example about myself. I played basketball professionally. The world, and not the world, but the era that I come from in basketball, this is before YouTubing was a thing. YouTube didn't come out until I was just getting out of college. It was after I got out of college. And I graduated college 2004. YouTube came out 2005. That's when I got on YouTube. But the era that I come from in basketball, there was a ladder to be climbed if you wanted to be a player. You played in the street, then you played in your local recreation center, then you would play high school, then you would play college, and then you play pro. If you can make it that far. Some people only stopped at the rec center. Some people stopped at high school. Some people made it to college. Some people made it to the pro level. But there was a ladder to climb, and there was one path. There was no other alternative path in basketball. You played street, rec, high school, college, pro. That's it. Then there was a time that street ball was a thing, quote unquote street ball, like the N1 mixtape and all that. But generally, there was one path to climb. Now, when YouTube became a thing, and I was YouTubing as a basketball player, now you got these alternative paths. Nowadays, look around in basketball. Maybe some of you are watching this. Maybe one of your kids does something like this where you can make money. And this is all based on if you're trying to make money in basketball. You had to climb up the ladder. Nowadays, you can make money from basketball without even playing in college. You could play in the street. You could play rec. Maybe you make your high school team. Maybe you don't. But then you get on TikTok or YouTube and you start doing funny basketball stuff. You could be making thousands of dollars a month and you didn't have to climb the ladder at all. You didn't even play. You didn't even try to play in college. Maybe you didn't even go to college. You didn't try to play pro. You didn't have a chance to make it pro. Maybe you wouldn't make it even if you tried. But you could be making the same amount or more money than somebody who's on some NIL deal in college, or even somebody who's playing pro ball at some level, and you never even had to climb the ladder as high as they did. So I can understand why somebody who climbed the ladder could be looking at you, a TikToker or an Instagrammer or a YouTuber, and you're like, how is this person making money the same amount that I'm making, and they didn't have to climb the ladder? I understand. I understand why somebody could be annoyed by that. I'm not annoyed by it because I was making money from both. But at the same time, I understand why somebody could be annoyed by that because there's a ladder to be climbed. And some people are like, well, you didn't have to climb the ladder. I had to climb the ladder. And now it's so easy for you. And this is why, depending on your age bracket, some of you may have parents or people who are older than you are looking at you like, do you understand how easy it is for you to kind of create success for yourself through that phone? And we didn't have that. I completely understand that. I understand that 100%. And these people who have, again, had the megaphones and the platforms to where they were the only voice that could be heard, I understand why they're pissed off, why now they're not the only voice that can be heard. And here's the biggest point. This is the last point I'm going to share, and then we're going to get the comments. The internet, ladies and gentlemen, what it has created, especially when we're talking about stuff like this. I mean, it's created a lot of things, but when we're talking about stuff like this, like debate and conversation and engagement over social issues and current events and politics, etc., it's what is created is the marketplace of ideas. That's the key. This is the marketplace of ideas, which means what? The marketplace of ideas means you get online, like I'm doing right now. You say what you want to say. You share your opinion. You express your point of view. Maybe people agree with it. Maybe people don't agree with it. Maybe you get a lot of response. Maybe you get no response. The marketplace of ideas means anyone who believes that they have something that is worth hearing, they can say it. And the marketplace is going to let you know how it feels about what you're saying. Whether they feel it is useful, they'll let you know it's useful. If they feel that it's trash, they'll let you know that it's trash. If maybe they don't know that you exist, maybe you got to try different approaches and do different things to get your message heard and get your message seen. The whole point is the marketplace of ideas means anybody can show up and share what you have. And if it's useful, the market will let you know. If it's not, the marketplace will let you know. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. In the entrepreneurial world, you are stepping into the open marketplace. If you bring value to the open marketplace, the market will let you know by giving you money. If what you're bringing is not valuable, or you have not done a good enough job of letting people know that you have value, then the marketplace will also let you know loud and clear, and you keep making your adjustments until you find the formula that works. That's the way the marketplace works. The marketplace is never wrong. So when Jeff Bezos told his people at Washington Post that reality is undefeated, this is what he was talking about. Reality is undefeated. That doesn't mean that if you're putting a product out and it's not selling, it doesn't mean something's wrong with your product. Maybe something's wrong with your marketing. Maybe something's wrong with your pitch. Maybe something's wrong with the way you're selling it. Maybe something's wrong with the way you're trying to get attention. Maybe you're just talking to the wrong people. There could be several things that could be fixed in the process. The point is the marketplace is always giving you a loud and clear message, and you must adjust to what the marketplace is saying. Whereas these people who come from working in these traditional places where they climbed the ladder and they had a monopoly on people's attention, they didn't have to respond to the marketplace as strongly as an entrepreneur has to respond to the marketplace, or a social media influencer has to respond to the marketplace, because your audience is going to let you know loud and clear what it is. You have to respond immediately and you have to pivot. Whereas if you work in the mainstream media, again, it's been when Trump entered the election, the race in 2015, it's been 10 years. These people still haven't responded. They haven't responded to the loud and clear message from the marketplace. And it's been a decade. They've had 10 years and they still haven't responded to what the marketplace has been telling them for 10 years. You don't have that luxury. That's what I'm letting all of you know, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You don't have this luxury. If you believe you have substance, you show up, you bring it to the table. No one has to fact check what you say. The marketplace will check you. So we call this marketplace checking. When you're an entrepreneur, you get marketplace checked, not fact checked, marketplace checked. You put a product or service out. Let's say I write another book. I got a bunch of books that are going to come out this year. I put a book out. The marketplace is going to tell me what they think about my book, and my pitch of the book, and the title of the book, and how I'm positioning the book, and who I say is for, and what I say it does. The marketplace is going to tell me what they think about it. I get checked by the marketplace, not by the facts. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And it's the same thing when it comes to ideas. On social media, I've joked about this, and at the same time, I'm telling you the truth. I get blocked on social media like every day by people, not because I'm harassing them or trolling them. I don't do that. I get blocked on social media by people because I challenge their point and they don't have a way to respond back to me challenging what they said. And since they can't say anything back, if my response, my challenge to them gets enough traction to where they can't ignore it, they'll just block me so they never have to engage with me again. Or they'll just say nothing. They'll just ignore what I said so they can act like they didn't see it. But if it's getting enough traction, they can't pretend like they didn't see the message. They only engage with the ones that they think they can knock down easily, what we call the low-hanging fruit. This is the marketplace of ideas. And I know people out there who have shared ideas that I vehemently disagree with, and I've challenged them on those, and then they just block me so they don't have to engage with me. See, that's not the marketplace of ideas. And you know who these people are? Usually it's people working in some traditional ladder climbing space. College professors is a big one. Advanced degree holders is another one. People with master's degrees and PhDs, and I get blocked by them all the time. Not because I'm quote unquote smarter than them or better than them in any way. It's because I've challenged their position and they are unwilling to defend their position in the marketplace of ideas. They'll only defend their position inside of their bubble, like the institution in which they work, or talking to people who work at the same level as them. So they have to kind of respect each other's position. Even if you think their position is nonsense, you can't challenge them as strongly as you would. These people don't operate in the marketplace of ideas, and most of them are not entrepreneurs. See, entrepreneurs don't have the luxury of hiding in a bubble. I don't have the luxury of hiding in a bubble. I don't have a bubble to hide in. So if I put something out there and people ain't feeling it, it's nowhere for me to go to where I can ignore it. I got to deal with it. I got to deal with the response from the marketplace. They're telling me what it is. Now, see, if you work in academia and you get on social media and say some nonsense, and someone like me who's not in academia challenges your nonsense, you can just block me. You can log off social media and you can just hang out in academia, just talk to your academic friends and never talk to people like me. And your ideas never get challenged by somebody who doesn't have to follow the rules of the space in which you work. Y'all get it? So you can get into your faculty meetings on your college campus and debate with them. But see, there's a certain level of respect they got to show you, even if they think what you're saying is complete bullshit. They still got to respect you on a certain level. I don't. See, that's why they rather engage with their coworkers and engage with somebody like me. Because see, I don't have to show you any respect if I don't want to. I don't have to act like what you said has any substance if I don't want to. And then you go to class and you teach your students, well, they got to show you some respect. They're a student, you're the teacher. They got to show you some level of respect. See, in the open marketplace of ideas, people don't have to respect anything that you say if they don't want to. This is the jungle as opposed to the zoo. So there's a difference between a lion who lives in the jungle and a lion who lives in the zoo. They're both lions. But the lion in the zoo gets fed twice a day by the zookeeper. They know the food's coming. They don't have to hunt. They don't have to kill. They don't have to do anything. They just wait for the food. See, the lion in the jungle, they don't go do something. They die. There's a difference. So even though they are both lions, they're living completely different realities. And what I've heard is that the lions who live in the jungle live longer than the lions who live in the zoo. Why? Because the lions in the jungle got to go do something to survive. Lions in the zoo ain't got to do nothing. They just sit there. All that said, folks, let me take questions and comments here from everything that I said. And it really is 50 degrees right now in South Florida. Now it's going up a little bit. It's now 52 degrees. This is crazy. I'm not a fan of this at all. But usually, as I said, we get about 2 weeks of this every year in South Florida. Then it goes back to how it's supposed to be. 52 degrees is crazy. Anyway, let's see what we got going on in the comments section. I'm checking over here. Now let's go over to Instagram. Then we'll come over to you folks on TikTok. TikTok usually has the most comments. That's why I do TikTok last. So everybody who's following me and listening to me right now, make sure you follow me on more than one platform. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube is just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. Subscribe there because all these replays are always on YouTube. Enigmatic Zach, good morning, said they get emotional when they write papers. Well, some people do. Darius V's Vision, what's going on? Good morning. Yeah, skipping steps said, shouldn't some things kept quiet? Yeah, if you want to, is up to individual discretion. That's the whole point. Baby Lynn said, yeah, what's that got to do with me? Yeah, you remember that line from Big Worm. And Maddie said, you can't even pop your shit on live anymore. Yeah, I don't know. It might have been the cursing. I don't know what I said. The thing is, TikTok doesn't tell you they don't tell you exactly what you did wrong. They just tell you that you did something wrong. That's the challenge. See, if I knew exactly what it was, if TikTok just gave me a list and said, all right, Dre, you can't use these words, I would just not use those words. But they don't do that. They just tell you when you did something wrong, but not what. Belford Williams, good morning. He says, now it's reversed. Back in the day, special ed kids treated like individual snowflakes in the class setting. Now everybody wants to be treated like a snowflake. That's a good point. Bell said, at least the special ed was the only case in the classroom setting. We understood we had to figure it out in the real world. Stress of calling those classes special ed back in the day. I like to say I was in AP classes if you compare it to society today, because now they want treatment I benefited from in the classroom setting. It's an interesting approach. I get what you're saying. You have a hitch in your shot, they're not going to delay the defense so you can get your feet set. That's right. It would just get blocked, right, and shoved. Yeah, exactly. So your game university teach how to skip steps. Yes, of course we do. Enigmatic Zach. Belfer says society is eroding on that type of thing to be instilled in us. Now it's okay to be a victim. Demand people adjust to you. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what's happening. All right, TikTok. Let's see what we got here. If you got a question or comment on TikTok, I'm looking at TikTok comments now. Slightly Sneezy said, what business are you in? I'm in a performance and results business. So we do that through books, coaching, speaking, consulting, and yes, books, coaching, speaking, and consulting, and these live streams. So you can call this speaking if you like. And you can find out more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is in the bio on this app that you are watching me on. Carla, good morning. Anthony Terrell Dinkins, good morning. Renata, got the heart. Thank you for the heart. You got the #1 gifter badge. Thank you. Renata said, we woke up, research began. Yes. And not even, people don't even have to research. You just got to listen to more than one voice. And the good news is social media makes that a natural result. So you don't even have to try to do it. It just naturally happens. That's the good thing about social media. It's not to say all social media is amazing, but that's one of the positives of it. Now to say, even the fact checkers are unreliable and biased, depending on the source. Exactly. That's the whole point. And that's why we don't want fact checkers, because they can control the flow of information. We don't want to control over the flow of information. We want it wide open so everybody can make their own decision. That's what we want. And the 2024 election outcome should have been a loud and clear signal to everybody. If they didn't get it in 2016, they should have got it in 2024. Big John says, your average Democrat still believes there was no political, they call that lawfare, Big John. I did a live on that last week. Lawfare, LAWFARE. So just replace the war with the law. That's what they did. They did it to Trump. They've done it to several people. January 6ers, they did it to them too. The other Dion says, the First Amendment means you can say what you want to say without fear of prosecution. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it means. Equation said, not free from consequences. Well, it depends on where you are, whether there are consequences or not. That's why that last point that I made explains this. If let's say somebody who has a PhD and a master's degree and they're a college professor, they make some nonsense point. At least I think it's nonsense. If I work on the college campus and I go to a faculty meeting and tell them what they said is some nonsense and trash their entire point and trash everything that they said, I might get fired from my job. That's the consequence. But the thing is, if I get on social media and trash their entire point and trash everything they said, I can't get fired because I don't work in the same place that they work. I'm an entrepreneur. Nobody can fire me. So yes, Equation, you're right. That is not free from consequences, but it depends on what space you're in as to what consequences apply to you and which ones don't. So if I'm a college professor, the consequence is I got to follow the rules of that college because I got bosses who can tell me what I can say and what I can't say. You're an entrepreneur, you have no boss. So nobody can tell me what I can't say. That's the reason why I can talk about the things that I talk about on my platform. And I don't have to follow any rules of decorum if I don't want to. I follow rules of decorum because I set them myself, not because somebody tells me that I have to do it. And there's a huge difference between people who climb ladders to get to their positions and people who don't. The other Dion said, you can be sued for libel and defamation for, yes, you can, but those things are very hard to prove. And it usually depends on your status and stature, because you usually only sue people you think you can make money from them. Colleen, 24, said, you're great at explaining. Thank you. Kyle said, what about the Gulf of America? Yeah, I saw that trending, but I didn't really read about it. I think it's kind of like Trump doing what he does best. He controls the conversation. Do I think he's really going to try to do that? I doubt it. But he gets people talking. That's what he does. He's very good at that. Getting people just talking about stuff, even if he's not planning on doing it, but he makes everybody talk about it. So either you talk about it because you like it, you think it's funny, or you talk about it because you hate it and you get all upset. Either way, he's controlling the news. Either way, he wins. So that's a skill that he has. He's been doing it for 40 years. He didn't just start doing that when he got in politics. Maina says, I love listening to you every morning. Go intelligent combos. Thank you, Maina. I appreciate that. Kyle says, but if you're wrong, do you admit it? Okay. If I'm wrong, yes. Wrong about what? Yeah, that's the thing. And here's the thing. Speaking of Jeff Bezos, that Amazon put up their principles of leadership. This is on their website, by the way. Let me see if it's still there, because I did a whole article on my show several years ago about Amazon's principles of leadership. And where is it? Amazon principles of leadership. This is probably about 2017. I did this, and they posted their principles of leadership on their website. So if y'all don't know about this, y'all should look this up. I'm gonna see if it's still there. They updated it. They got it in video now instead of, so it's in here. They just got it on video now. So now when you look at it, it's all videos, but it's Amazon leadership principles. So if you just go on Google and look up Amazon leadership principles, I just pulled this up right online. It's public for a reason, because they want you to see it. And it's customer obsession, number 1, ownership, number 2, invent and simplify, number 3. And here's number 4. Leaderships are right a lot. Y'all see that? This is the 4th principle of leadership. You want to work at Amazon, you are usually right about what you say. Y'all see that? Are right a lot. I'm showing you this because this principle was there back in 2017 when I did my video on this whole series. This was on there back then. It's still there now. Now, what does that mean? It says leaders are right a lot. They have strong judgment and good instincts. They seek diverse perspectives and work to disconfirm their beliefs. All that means this, that usually if you know what you're talking about and you're an expert, usually the things that you say are not wrong, they're right. So this question here from Kyle said, if you're wrong, do you admit it? Yes. The thing is, I'm usually not wrong. Why? Because I know what I'm talking about. People who are in leadership positions are usually right about what they say. Doesn't mean they're 100%, but they're pretty damn close. Music Man Ray said, if you fact check the truth, it will lead back to the truth. Exactly. I love that statement right there. Music Man Ray, I like the way you worded that. If you fact check the truth, you will still end up at the truth. Perfect. You said that perfectly. I got to steal that one from you, Music Man Ray. Thank you. Colleen said, ironic, Donald Trump platform is called Truth. Yeah, they called it that for a reason. A said, who fact checked the fact checkers? Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the reason why they got community notes. So now we can eliminate that. I could, if I can, say, honey, where's my super suit? I don't know what that means. Music Man says, both were fact checked. There was no bypass act there. Well, they didn't. There were several things. I did this after the first debate between Kamala and Trump. There were several things Kamala said that they did not fact check. They didn't fact check her once. The first debate between, actually, there was only one debate, right? When Trump and Kamala, they only debated one time. During that one debate, Kamala said several things that were not true, and the moderators did not say anything. I remember doing a live about that the very next day. They did not fact check her. Freedom of speech doesn't give people the right to lie or twist the truth. Ace, yes, it does. This is what you just said is false. Yes, it does. Freedom of speech gives people the right to lie. And yes, you have the right to twist the truth. You have the right to say things that are completely false. You do have the right to do that. That is exactly what freedom of speech means. I could get up here and lie for an hour on this live stream if I wanted to. Now, what would happen is, as I just explained, the marketplace of ideas, all of you who are listening to me would say, okay, what this dude is saying is not true. It's false. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying a bunch of things that for a quote unquote fact are inaccurate. You would just stop listening. And eventually I would get the point. I would see, damn, ain't nobody listening to me. I might as well stop talking. All right. That's what would happen if what I was saying was nonsense. That's the reason why you have freedom of speech. You say what you want. You have the right to lie. You have the right to be hateful. You got the right to be nasty. You got the right to be harmful, quote unquote, harmful, dangerous. You got the right to be, what's another word? You got the right to be what's the word? Intolerant. Yeah, I can get up here and talk bad about another religion or about another group or about another race. I could do all those things if I wanted to. Now, some platforms might kick me off because they don't want me saying those things. Doesn't mean I don't have the right to say it. Rogue One says, can't wait to start posting about you all over social media and can't fact check it. Yeah, go ahead. The thing is, if it's nonsense, then the marketplace of ideas is going to show you that it's nonsense and it won't get any traction. So then eventually you're going to stop doing it. That's the whole point. Music Man said we need back the fairness doctrine. What's the fairness doctrine? Rogue said, weren't you a featured dancer? All right. So he said, I was a featured dancer at Pride 2017. I clearly remember you seeing you there. All right. So you see if anybody picks up on that story. And the thing is, here's the thing, Rogue One. What you said is a good example. So that's what you said is not true. It's not based on anything. And if you don't have anything to back it up, nobody's really going to listen. That's the issue. So I get what you're saying. That's a good example. Rogue said, isn't that why you were kicked out the league? Yeah, nice try. But it's a good example. I'm glad you said that. Renata said provocative then and not dangerous. Yeah. Well, dangerous, people can use the word that they want to, but people use that word as a way of emotionally manipulating everybody. They call language dangerous and harmful and hurtful. They use these terms as a way of emotionally manipulating you. So they'll say something like, well, Dre, you shouldn't use this word, even though you're telling a story. And that was the word as part of the story. They'll say you shouldn't use this word because it's hurtful to other people. So be hurt. So what if you're hurt? All right. What do they say? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't care if you're hurt. Again, I'm not in the feelings business, but there are a lot of people who are in the feelings business and they can be manipulated by being told something like that. Don't say this because it's hurtful. And then they won't say it. Or don't say this because it's harmful. And then they won't say it. Don't say this because it's dangerous. And then they won't do it. I say, no, I'm going to say whatever the hell I want to say. And again, because of my position, I can do that. But there are other people in other positions who can't do that because they have people who will tell them, hey, you got to follow these rules. I don't like following rules. I do follow rules. I make rules, but I don't like having somebody dictate rules to me. But that's just me. I'm not saying you need to be like that. I'm just saying that's who I am. Shane Davis says, who cares about W? We live in America. We are allowed to voice our opinions. Yes, that's right. First Amendment. Shane says, should we say hateful stuff? No, but it's the First Amendment to be able to speak your mind and opinion. Exactly. That's right. It's not that I wouldn't recommend if somebody came to me and say, Dre, I just want to express hate for a certain group. Should I do it? I would say I would dive into why they want to do that. I would probably advise you not do it, but it's not illegal for you to do it if you want to. Opinions are fine. Hate speech shouldn't be. Define hate speech. What's hate speech? If I say I hate a certain group of people, I have a right to do that. And it's fine. And the reason why it's fine, Ace, is because of the First Amendment. Hate is legal. People should understand this. So, Ace, what you're saying here is not even about you personally, but this is a lot of people have the same opinion. So I'm glad you said it. Hate is legal. You are legally allowed to hate anyone you want to for any reason you want or for no reason at all. I could hate you. I don't even have to have a real reason. I'm allowed to hate you. I'm allowed to be intolerant of you. I'm intolerant of, I don't like girls. I don't like boys. I don't like kids. I don't like whatever. People who follow a certain religion. I am legally allowed to be intolerant of you, and I'm legally allowed to express it if I want to. Now, I might not want to act on it, but I'm legally allowed to express it. I can be bigoted towards certain things. I did an episode on my show a few weeks ago that I'm a proud bigot. I am bigoted about certain things. There are certain things that I am completely against, even though other people are for them. I'm completely against them. And if you ask me, I will tell you to your face, I'm against it. So these things you're allowed to do. You are allowed to be these things. And this whole concept of it shouldn't be allowed, I'm completely against that. Again, the reason the First Amendment is the First Amendment is because it's protecting people's right to express what they want to express. You don't have to agree with what someone else says, but you cannot block them from saying it. So I don't agree with everything other people say, but I do not have a problem with them being able to say it. So if someone comes out and says that their son can become a daughter, I disagree. But I wouldn't say, well, let's block them from being able to talk. Let's kick them off social media so they can't say that. No, let them say it. I want them to be able to say it. Why? Because if someone says something that I believe is nonsense, the more they say it, the more they're going to expose the nonsense of what they're saying, and the easier they will get exposed, and the more quickly it will be proven that what they're saying is nonsense. So if I disagree with something that any of you says, I don't want to block you from saying that. I want you to keep saying it, because the more you say it, the more quickly you're going to be exposed for the fraud, not you personally, but the fraud of the context of what you said. So if someone disagrees with something that I say, you should actually hope that I say it as much as possible, because then that will expose me, and I'll get exposed by the marketplace of ideas. But if I keep saying it and the marketplace of ideas seems to be going along with it, well, that might tell you something as well. Depends on what it is, because there are people out there who agree that a boy can become a girl. The marketplace of ideas is divided on that concept. All right, so that's why we got to fight it out. That's the reason why we have community notes. So you say what you say, I say what I say, we go back and forth. That is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be one side says something and then nobody else is allowed to challenge it. No, it's supposed to be you say something, I say something, we go back and forth. We debate there's a word I'm missing. It's escaping me right now. But we debate the quality of our points. Let's just say that, for the lack of a better term. We talk about what is the quality of my position. You talk about the quality of your position. We go back and forth. We let the audience hear it. People in the audience get to say what they want to say. And then we see who has a better idea. And that's how it works. That's what the marketplace of ideas means. And again, let me remind you all, I am an athlete. I come from the sports world. In the sports world, you can't block another player from playing in the game just because you think that player is too good. It's not like when the New York Knicks were playing the Chicago Bulls, they couldn't say, well, Michael Jordan can't play. No, you had to beat Michael Jordan. And if you didn't beat Jordan, then you lost. That's the way it works. You got to go out there and you got to compete. And in the marketplace of ideas, we're competing on ideas as opposed to competing with basketballs, footballs, or in combat sports with fists. You got to go out there and compete. And if you have an idea that you think is useful, you put it out into the public marketplace, and let's see if you can stand on and defend your idea. If you can't, or you are unwilling to defend your idea in the marketplace of ideas, then your idea is probably garbage. And this happens a lot with people who work in academia. I get blocked by academics damn near every day because I challenge them on their bullshit. And when they can't defend it, they go hide in their academic bubbles because they can hide there. You can't hide in the open marketplace. And again, I'm an entrepreneur. In the entrepreneurial world, you cannot hide. There's nowhere to hide. When you work in a bureaucracy, you can go hide. I'm not a fan of people who put an idea out there and then they hide when people challenge them. And there are a lot of them. I wish X had a piece in it where they could just show you all the people who block you. They can show you the people that you block. I don't block anybody. But if they had a list of just the people who block me, I would do it live and I would just tell you who they are and I would tell you why they block me, but they don't show you that. So I can't do it. I would have to go off memory. I can name a few of them, but maybe not today. Let's see. Shane said the left the whole time wanted you to see only what they wanted. Yes, of course. And it looked like they were doing that successfully, but the outcomes of the election showed us that they didn't. A said, if your mind is filled with hateful things, American or not, you should be censored. No, sir. No. Vegas said, I've said that for years. My rights don't stop at your feelings. Exactly. A said, I'm not a leftist. Just don't think hate speech should be a thing. If you have derogatory thoughts, well, hate speech is a thing. It's not about whether it should or not. It is already a thing. And it's not about you being a leftist. It's the First Amendment is not about left or right. First Amendment means everyone has a right to say whatever they want. And that's period. That's what it is. Colleen says, we have become politically correct and everyone's feelings are hurt. Yes, well, a good segment of people have, but there's a whole bunch of people keeping what we're talking about here today. They're still keeping it alive. Six Rangers said TikTok is crazy. They might be, and we don't know. I gotta be careful. I can't talk bad about TikTok on TikTok. Erica said, love this. Thank you. A said, did they just apply it? Yes, because it's their platform. Where there's a difference between being on someone's platform and America. America is free speech, is the open marketplace of ideas. On Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, X, YouTube, TikTok, I can't say just anything. I told you all this. Were you not listening to me when I said that? I said on TikTok, there are certain things I know I can't say. There are certain names I can't say. certain countries that I won't name, certain words that I won't use because it's their rules. On their platform, I have to follow their rules. In the open marketplace, I can say whatever I want to say. The open marketplace is not a social media platform per se. Different ones, it's more open. On Rumble or X, I can pretty much say anything and mention any name and I'm good. But I understand that if I get on TikTok or I get on Instagram or I get on Facebook or I get on, what's the other one? LinkedIn, there are certain things I should probably not say because they make the rules. Again, I just told you, I'm an entrepreneur. I make the rules in my space. These are not my spaces. I'm using their platforms, but I am a visitor on these platforms. So I have to follow their rules because they make the rules. So it's just understanding where you're at. So you got to know what to say and when to say it. There's certain things that I say when I'm talking to y'all that I wouldn't say if I'm sitting talking to my mom and my dad. Like a certain language I don't use when I'm talking to them. A certain language I wouldn't use if I'm talking to some third graders about business, as if I'm talking to some entrepreneurs who are 30 years old about business. You have to adjust for your audience. So it's just understanding what to use and what not to use and in what places. Every human being understands this. Just most people aren't able to articulate it. I'm just explaining it to you all. But all of you understand it. All you do it already without even thinking about it. Instinctively, you do it. Colleen said, you still have the skills to make content and an audience. Yes, that's true. 20 degrees in Georgia. Yeah, wouldn't want to be y'all. I know when it's cold in Florida and it's cold everywhere. Florida is the last place to get cold. So I know all of you in America is cold wherever you're at, unless you're in Hawaii or something. But if it's cold in South Florida, then I know it's cold everywhere else in America. There's a big cold front coming through the country right now. We get it last. Brandon says 30-something in Bama. Yeah, that's crazy. Traditional said free speech is not free anymore. Well, it was never free. It was never free. If you're going to speak freely, understand you're going to offend some people. That's the cost of free speech, is that some people are going to be offended by what you say and they won't listen to you anymore. Even if they like everything else you said, they will stop listening to you because you said one thing that they didn't like. That's the cost of free speech. It's the reason why most people don't say what they really think out loud, because they don't want to offend the wrong people. I just don't have a problem with it. That's it. That's the only difference. Paulina says, I look forward to your lives while I take the train to work, entertaining, educational. Well, thank you. Shout out to people listening to me on the train. I've been on the train a long time. They do have a train in Miami, but it's not a big thing. Not like up north where trains are everything. Brittany said they also altered her 60 Minutes interview as why Trump was suing. Yeah, I remember that. They did alter it because she said something that didn't make any sense. And then they changed it up to make it sound like it made sense. Nicole said, my aunt is outspoken, says, leave your feelings at home. Yes, exactly. You said you're allowed to go over feelings. Exactly. Not to say I don't have feelings. I just think logic a lot. Exactly. I have feelings too, but I put that to the back burner when it's time to go to work. Brandon says, let them expose themselves. Yes, exactly. That's the whole point of the marketplace of ideas, folks. The point of marketplace of ideas is that if someone says something that's completely garbage, don't try to stop them from saying it. You should actually encourage them to say it more because they're going to get exposed. If it's really garbage, it'll get exposed. Now, if it turns out that it's actually good, maybe you will learn something. You'll find out, oh, well, I thought this was garbage, but when everybody else heard it, they're saying that there actually may be some substance to it. Okay, maybe I need to look at this again. Maybe I need to take a look at this. Maybe I develop a different perspective. And open-minded people are willing to do that. Critical thinkers are willing to alter their positions when they get new information, new perspectives, and new experiences. And at the same time, you have to balance that out against, well, who are they talking to? So if someone says a boy can become a girl, all right, there's a percentage of people who will always agree with that, and there's a percentage who won't agree with it. So it depends on who's responding. So that doesn't mean just because people agree with something means you need to agree with it, because there are things that certain people agree with it, and you are 100% against it. So if you're, for example, a staunch, devoted member of a religion, and there are a bunch of people out there who are atheists, and they don't believe in any religion, they don't believe in a higher being or anything, just because there's a bunch of them who agree with it, you can walk into a room and there's 1,000 of them, that doesn't mean you should change your mind. You just got to stand on what you stand on. And so in certain points in life, you got to decide, okay, maybe all these people disagree with me, but I'm still standing on this. That's what we call principles. Principles do not change. You don't edit your principles. You can edit your opinions. You don't edit your principles. The problem that we have in the world today, especially in the United States, is that a lot of people have no principles. So that's why they're so easily persuaded to believe anything, even if it's nonsense. This is how we got people believing that a boy can become a girl, because they have no principles. They're not standing on anything. So you can easily persuade them to believe anything. As the saying goes, you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. That's what's happening. That's what's happening to a lot of people, especially in America, but this happens in other places as well. But I'm speaking on America as I live here. If you have no principles, you will easily be persuaded by anything. And these people who are persuading you of nonsense, they are not dummies. This is another thing. Don't think just because you disagree with somebody, they're dumb. These people are often pretty smart. These are highly educated, advanced degree holding people who are telling you that you should accept and believe something. And they're really good at explaining it, articulating it in a way that you sound like you're crazy if you don't agree with them. And if you're not good enough to catch the nonsense in their language, they may end up persuading you to some bullshit that you shouldn't even be believing because you have no principles. When your principles are solid enough, you cannot be persuaded to nonsense. The challenge for many people, some of you are listening to this right now, is that you have no principles. Principles are etched in stone. They do not change. Your strategies can change. Your tactics can change. Your opinions can change. Your principles never change. Steve Malor, what's going on, my dude? Good to see you. So Renata said, how do people sue for discrimination? Well, they have to prove it. But you got to call a lawyer. You got to prove that you were discriminated against. Those things are hard to win. Court cases are hard to win, folks. Suing people is a hard case to win. But depending on who you're suing, they may be more inclined to just get rid of you rather than fight, and they'll just pay you off. So this is why people get sued so much. That's why America is the most litigious society in the world, because there are companies out there who put money aside just to pay off lawsuits just so you go away. So big companies will pay off a lawsuit, even if your lawsuit is kind of thin. They rather just pay you off and get rid of you than pay their lawyers and fight you in court, because it costs them less money to just get rid of you than it will cost to fight the court case. So just because someone, quote unquote, not even wins, but settles a lawsuit does not necessarily mean that they were right and the other side was wrong. Not necessarily. Often that's not the case. Paulina got the gifter badge, #1 gifter badge. Shout out to you, Paulina. All right, any more questions? I'll take a couple more before we wrap this one up. We did pretty good on time here today. While I'm waiting, I'll let all of you know I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm usually talking about a current event or some type of social issue or something that has come up. This one wasn't even going to be the topic today, but I saw it was trending a lot on X yesterday. So I made an executive decision and moved this to the top spot. I still have a live where the other thing I was going to talk about, I'm going to talk about immigration. I'm going to do a whole conversation on immigration. That one is a kind of like an evergreen one. I could talk about that anytime I want. So if nothing pops up between today and tomorrow I'll talk about immigration. But if something pops up, then I'll talk about that something, whatever that something might be. And again, it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern is when I do these lives. As people often ask when I do the live. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. And it's usually on a current event, something that has come up in the news. By the way, while you're here, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube is look up my name. My name is Dre, D-R-E. My last name is Baldwin, B-A-L-D-W-I-N. And I put all the live replays on YouTube, and I'm live on YouTube right now, by the way. So I just have multiple cameras here. So this same live is on YouTube right now. Any live that I tell you that I did already is on YouTube. Y'all can find all of these on YouTube. And working with me directly, people sometimes ask me, what do I do? I'm not a lawyer. I do play one on the internet, but I'm not a lawyer. That's a joke. And go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where we do all our coaching, consulting, speaking. You can find out more about our programs. We got group programs. You can have me as your personal coach. All that happens at workonyourgameuniversity.com. I have books that I've written. These books you can see behind me are my books. I got more books on the way this year. I think I might put out 10 books this year. I think I might put 10 books out this year. We got a lot. It's just the only challenge is not writing a book. The challenge is just figuring out how we're going to roll everything out, because we got to give every book enough room to breathe. Sometimes we put out 2 books at the same time. So I got more books on the way. You can find out more about that by going to workonmygame.com. Get on my email list. You'll get emails from me about books and offers and all the other stuff that we have. And that's that, everybody. Hope everybody had a great time here. Hope you got some value out of this. If you liked it, we had 20,000 likes. Shout out to the likes, everybody who put the likes through. Shout out to Brittany, my moderator over here on TikTok. We'll be live tomorrow again at 8 a.m. Eastern. You want to engage with me textually on social media. Follow me on X. My X is just my name. No, it's not my name. It's Dre all day. But on all social media, LinkedIn, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok, just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. I'm public on every platform. I'm very easy to find. I'm active on every social media platform. I will see you all tomorrow. Work on your game. We out of here.